Have you ever looked at your bank account? Not because you wanted to buy something, but because you just needed to know if you were still okay. Maybe it's late at night. Everything is quiet. Your phone screen lights up your face. You open your banking app. Scroll slowly, almost cautiously, like the numbers might judge you. And for a moment, your chest tightens. Not because you spent irresponsibly, not because you're careless, but because somehow, despite working hard, despite trying to do everything right, it still feels fragile, like one unexpected bill could shift everything. Here's the strange part. This feeling is incredibly common. Yet most people assume they're the only ones going through it. We see curated lifestyles online, vacations, new cars, aesthetic apartments, people talking confidently about investing and passive income, as if everyone else has already figured something out we somehow missed. But today, I want to slow this down, because when you actually look at the real numbers behind the average person's financial life, the picture is very different from what we imagine. Some of these statistics might surprise you. Some might make you uncomfortable, but most of them will remind you that you're not behind, you're human. And once you understand what's really happening behind the scenes, money stops feeling like a personal failure and starts looking more like a system we were never fully taught to navigate. Asterisk. We often treat money like a test of intelligence or discipline. If someone has savings, we assume they're responsible. If someone has debt, we assume they made bad choices. But financial life is rarely that simple. Most people don't start with a clear playbook. They don't grow up having calm conversations about investing, risk, or long-term planning. They learn by reacting, not by designing. And when you're constantly reacting, money becomes emotional. You don't just feel numbers. You feel pressure. Pressure to keep up with friends. Pressure to support family. Pressure to appear stable, even when things feel uncertain internally. One of the most shocking realities is this. A large percentage of people feel anxious about money regularly, regardless of how much they earn, because the real problem isn't just income, it's unpredictability. It's the quiet fear that one mistake, one emergency, one unexpected shift could undo years of effort. And once that fear becomes familiar, it shapes behavior. People delay investing because they want to feel safe first. People overspend because they want to feel in control. People avoid checking their finances because they don't want to feel judged by numbers. We assume people are irrational with money, but often they're just trying to protect their sense of stability. And that brings us to something surprising. Many of the most shocking money statistics aren't shocking because people are irresponsible. They're shocking because they reveal how human financial behavior really is. Asterisk. Consider this. A large portion of adults don't have enough savings to cover even a few months of expenses. If income suddenly stopped, not because they don't care, but because modern life is expensive in ways that don't always feel visible. Rent doesn't wait for motivation. Groceries don't pause when you feel overwhelmed. Transportation, healthcare, education. These costs quietly absorb income before we even think about saving. And then there's lifestyle creep, something almost everyone experiences. You start earning slightly more, and naturally, your environment changes. Maybe the apartment becomes a little nicer. Maybe food becomes more convenient. Maybe small comforts become non-negotiable. None of these feel extravagant individually, but together, they reshape your financial baseline. Another surprising statistic shows that many people who earn above average still live paycheck to paycheck, not because they lack discipline, but because expectations grow faster than income. When income rises, social comparison rises too. We begin measuring ourselves differently. We compare our lives not to our past, but to the people around us now, and comparison is expensive, not just financially, but emotionally. Then there's debt. Debt is often framed as failure. But most debt isn't reckless spending. It's education, it's medical needs, it's helping family. It's bridging gaps between income and reality. In fact, many people carry debt for years, not because they're irresponsible, but because interest quietly extends the timeline. Compound interest works beautifully when investing, but painfully when borrowing. Time becomes either your ally or your weight. Another statistic that surprises people is how few individuals feel confident about investing. Not because investing is inherently complex, but because uncertainty feels risky when money represents security. People often wait until they feel ready to start investing. But ready rarely arrives as a feeling, it arrives as understanding, and understanding takes time. Many people also underestimate how much small, consistent habits shape long-term outcomes. Saving a small percentage consistently often matters more than waiting for a large opportunity, because financial stability rarely comes from dramatic moves. It usually comes from quiet consistency. There's also something deeply human about how we treat future versions of ourselves psychologically. We often prioritize present comfort over future relief, not because we're careless, but because the present feels real and the future feels abstract. When retirement is decades away, it feels distant. When a bill is due tomorrow, it feels urgent. So decisions lean toward immediate stability, not long-term optimization. Another statistic that often surprises people is how many adults feel they're behind financially. Regardless of age, people in their 20s feel behind because they haven't saved enough. People in their 30s feel behind because they haven't invested enough. People in their 40s feel behind because they started late. People in their 50s feel behind because they compare themselves to someone more prepared. Feeling behind is almost universal because comparison has no finish line. And here's something rarely talked about: many high earners feel trapped. Their lifestyle depends on maintaining a certain income level. Their responsibilities grow, their margin for flexibility shrinks. More income doesn't always mean more freedom. If expenses grow equally, one of the most powerful statistics shows that people who automate saving often accumulate significantly more wealth over time than those who rely on motivation alone. Because motivation fluctuates, systems don't. And perhaps the most emotionally surprising statistic is how strongly financial stress impacts mental well-being. Money worries affect sleep, focus, relationships, decision-making. It's single quotes. Not just about numbers, it's about cognitive load. When part of your mind is constantly calculating, anticipating, adjusting, it consumes energy, and that's why money feels heavy, even when things are technically fine, because uncertainty is exhausting. At some point, many people experience a quiet realization. The goal isn't to become perfect with money. The goal is to reduce financial fragility, to create small pockets of stability, so life feels less reactive. Because financial peace rarely comes from hitting a specific number, it comes from increasing flexibility. Flexibility to handle surprises. Flexibility to say no. Flexibility to take opportunities without fear of collapse. When you understand how common financial anxiety is, something shifts internally. You stop assuming everyone else has it figured out. You stop measuring your progress against invisible timelines. You begin focusing on direction instead of comparison. And direction is powerful. Because small adjustments, repeated consistently, compound quietly, just like interest. You don't need dramatic financial transformation. Asterisk, you need slightly better decisions, repeated more often. You don't need perfect discipline. You need fewer fragile points in your financial life, more margin, more breathing room, more time working in your favor instead of against you, and perhaps most importantly, more self-compassion during the process, because shame rarely improves decision-making, awareness does. Asterisk, when people start improving their financial lives, it rarely begins with complex investing strategies. It often begins with clarity, understanding where money is actually going, not judging, just observing. Patterns become visible quickly. Subscriptions that no longer matter, spending that reflects stress rather than enjoyment, costs that quietly increased over time. Small awareness creates small adjustments, and small adjustments create momentum. Another helpful shift is separating identity from financial outcomes. Your savings balance is not a measure of your worth. Your debt is not a measure of your intelligence. Your timeline is not a race against strangers online. Financial progress becomes more sustainable when it feels personal, not performative. Asterisk, consistency often matters more than intensity. Saving modest amounts regularly can feel almost insignificant until time multiplies those decisions. Building even a small emergency cushion changes psychology dramatically. Unexpected expenses stop feeling catastrophic and start feeling manageable. Investing gradually reduces the pressure to time everything perfectly, because perfection is unpredictable. But participation is powerful. Another important shift is redefining what progress actually means. Sometimes, progress means paying down debt slowly. Sometimes, progress means resisting lifestyle inflation. Sometimes, progress means learning enough to feel slightly more confident than last year. Financial growth is rarely dramatic in real time. Asterisk. It's often only obvious when looking backward. And perhaps the most realistic takeaway is allowing room for imperfection. There will be months where unexpected costs appear, moments where discipline feels difficult, times where comparison sneaks back in. That doesn't erase progress. It simply means the process is still human. Asterisk. If there's one quiet truth behind all these statistics, it's this: most people are doing the best they can with the information and pressures they have. Financial life isn't a straight line. It's a series of adjustments. Moments of clarity, followed by moments of uncertainty. Periods of discipline, followed by periods of flexibility. And that's okay, because stability isn't built in one perfect year. It's built across many imperfect ones. The numbers we explore today aren't meant to create fear. They're meant to create perspective. You are never supposed to have everything figured out immediately. No one really does. Behind confident appearances, most people are learning as they go, quietly improving, quietly adjusting, quietly becoming more aware. And awareness changes everything. Because once you understand how money actually behaves over time, the urgency softens. You stop chasing dramatic wins and start building quiet resilience. And resilience is powerful. It doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks for patience. Small improvements, repeated gently. Because financial confidence isn't about knowing every answer. It's about knowing you're moving in a direction that future you will appreciate. Not perfect, just better. And better compounds.